Great, here we go. Welcome everyone to our event. We're really excited to have Valiantys presenting Advanced Roadmaps and Jira Align, two very interesting products. They're going to do a bit of a comparison between the two of them, as well as show the amazing features of both. And we've been wanting to do this talk for a long time, so we're really excited to have them here to present this to us and do a deep dive. Before we get started, what I would like to first announce is that if you haven't already seen the advertising for Atlassian Team 21, which is a virtual, no Vegas this year, baby, next year, hopefully. But this will be on August 28th to April 28th to April 30th. The events.atlassian.com, follow that to get all the information on you want. If you're need a free code, let us know at Toronto_Canada at atlassiancommunity.com and we can hook you up. For some reason, I think there might be a charge for this, and we do have free codes for our members. So we're really looking forward to that. I'd like to introduce Dean from Valiantys, who is going to start us off with our presentation. I'm going to stop sharing, and Danny, if you want to quickly bring up the Slido code before we start, and then we'll turn it over to Dean, so everybody who's on the call can get their phones queued up, or their computers queued up. Phones are easier, I think, to do the Slido quiz at the end, which will have door prizes. We're going to be offering 3 books. Pierre, can you tell us a bit about those books? I hate to put you on the spot like that.
Well, that's okay. Well, I much prefer having Dean.
Okay, Dean, you want to tell us about the book?
He's the co-author.
The book is sort of a theme of today's presentation. We've got a lot of images taken from the book. It's the very first book written on Jira Align, called Scaling Agile with Jira Align. Written by my colleague in London, Aslam Kader, and myself, based in Los Angeles. Nice to meet you all. So yeah, that's going to be one of your fabulous prizes today for the St. Patrick's version of the meetup.
That is great. Okay, so everyone, we're going to turn it over to Dean. We'll pop that Slido code back up at the end of the presentation so that you can participate and win a book. And then following that, we'll have some Q&A. All right, and if everyone could please mute while Dean and Romain are giving their presentation. Thank you.
All right, so you could all see the title slide, I take it, 4 Dimensions of the Connected Enterprise. Yeah, good. And so, we don't want to just look at the tools today. We want to see how the tools support your Agile practices and how you.
We're all on mute, so we're being quiet there. But
I saw some thumbs up. Cool.
Yes, we can
build your connected enterprise, right? With both Agile practices and the tools that support them. And we're going to take this step by step for you all. But I want to also make sure you meet Roma, who's going to be doing the hands-on demoing portion. He is my right-hand man for today up in Canada, closer to many of you all. And once again, I'm Dean MacNeil, and I head up our Agile at Scale practice at Valiantys. So we have a lot to cover today. We're going to go kind of quick, but we're going to hopefully give you enough information, both conceptually and looking under the hood at the tools themselves. But just to level set our understanding, we're going to start with just briefly putting out what are the 5 levels of Agile at Scale from the top down. Then we're going to talk about how we build the connected enterprise, focusing on 4 key dimensions. And you're going to learn what those 4 key dimensions are. And you'll also read about those in the book, since we started talking about the book already. Again, building from the ground up, and then top tips for scaling Agile with Jira Align. We're going to have the quiz, and then Q&A, and then the prizes. And not just the book, but also some Atlassian swag as well. So the 5 levels of scale, just for those who don't know, taking it from the top down, because this is important to just level set. The enterprise level, that is where your strategy is set and governed. And that's really the tip of the iceberg. From there, we get into one or more portfolios within the organization. And this is where strategy gets mapped to execution. And for you Atlassian fans, you might have seen a similar slideshow in some of their materials. Now, within portfolios, there's often several solutions, and this is an optional level of scale. This is usually for companies delivering the most complex systems of systems, things like aerospace and military applications. So the solution level is where the large solutions get coordinated. But within there is what I consider to be the sweet spot of Agile at Scale, which is the program level or the team of teams level. And that's where the work on a quarterly basis primarily gets planned and executed. And usually programs will roll up into portfolios, but again, that solution level is an option for you if you have a very large, complex context for your organization. And last but not least, let's not forget about the teams, right? That's really the foundation. That's where all, the magic happens, right? That's where the work gets done that ultimately ties all the way up to your highest level corporate strategy. So we're going to now talk about how we build that connected enterprise where strategy is linked to tactical team level execution. And what we focus on is 4 key dimensions. It's not just people, work, and time anymore, because most importantly, it's the business results that you're trying to achieve. That's the outcomes dimension. So what we try to do is at each level of scale that we just saw, we like to have all 4 dimensions so that you have people delivering work over periods of time to produce measurable business outcomes. So those are the 4 keys. And you'll see as we get into the tools, how the tools support them. All right. Moving right along, when we build the connected enterprise from the ground up, we do like to start with a strong team level. And then from there, group them into teams of teams. Okay, and that would be the program level. And ideally, these teams of teams are organized around value, right, to reduce dependencies. Then we're going to get into that portfolio level, and we're going to show you how you could get your feet wet in the portfolio level with advanced roadmaps. And then we're going to show you how, for even more full realization of the portfolio level, how Jira Align supports that. So Roma's going to get in there and he's going to show you those 2. And then we'll talk about just really finishing off that connected enterprise with strategic themes and then that real top level strategy. So you'll see the whole picture and how we build it, okay? Let's start with that foundation. So again, looking at the 4 dimensions of people, work, time, and outcomes. In this case, we've got teams delivering stories within sprints to meet sprint goals. There's your 4 dimensions. Now, it's helpful at this stage to have a standardized, scalable Jira config, because as you're going to see at each step of the way, the tools should be supporting your Agile practices. And you want to lay a good, strong foundation. If you're going to build all the way up and connect your entire enterprise, which could be potentially dozens of portfolios. We've worked with some very large enterprises like that, or it could be a small one where you maybe have 1 portfolio of programs within your enterprise. Either way, you want to have a strong foundation. After that, if you've got, say, a handful of Agile teams delivering products and they're doing really well, and now you want to deliver even bigger products, or you want to scale that to other parts of the organization, at this point you start grouping into teams of teams that deliver as a coordinated program, would be the generic term, or other names could be tribe or Agile release train if you're following the scaled Agile framework, which is the most popular framework for Agile at scale with about 35% of the market. And here it's helpful that at least each program or team of teams have a common sprint cadence. And this is so that way the Agile teams in that particular tribe or release train or program, whatever you want to call it, speak the same language. So team A could communicate with team B and say, yeah, we're collaborating on this feature or Jira Epic, and we're going to have our story for your feature. If you're the primary team on that Jira Epic, we're going to deliver it by sprint 2 of Q2. So that way you guys could integrate it in sprint 3, and that feature could be ready to release in sprint 4, that kind of thing. So you're speaking the same language. Now notice here with Jira software, it does handle the program level quite well, but out of the box, you're going to be missing the time and outcomes dimensions. So the time dimension here would be a group of sprints, commonly called a quarterly increment or a program increment, if you're following SAFe. Okay, but not to worry, we're going to be able to fill in all the boxes we build the connected enterprise. Now at this stage, we like to introduce advanced roadmaps, because with advanced roadmaps, you could really, like I said, get your feet wet at that portfolio level. And this is important because if you've now got coordinated teams of teams working on Jira Epics, which generally speaking are product features, bigger pieces of work that deliver within a business quarter, whereas a user story would be delivered within a sprint. Now you could roll those up to a higher level item, generally speaking, a portfolio epic, or in Atlassian terminology, often an initiative. So you could get your roll-ups there of both your story points, and you could look at, hey, percent complete, how we doing in terms of points burned versus total points for the portfolio epic, or item count if you're running Kanban teams. Again, it gives you a good feel there. And Roma's going to show us what this looks like. So why don't we now pop on over for a Advanced Roadmaps demo.
Thank you, Dean. I'm going to need you to stop sharing. Perfect.
All right.
Go in. And you should now see my screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Fantastic. So yeah, Advanced Roadmap and how it supports these different items. I'm fairly sure that the people on the call today are probably most familiar with Advanced Roadmap versus Align, just because it used to be a plugin that you can integrate directly in Jira Software. It is now bundled with Jira Software Premium on the cloud, which is what we're looking at right here, and with Jira Data Center as well. So it's now no longer a plugin, a separate thing. It's part of Jira for different tiers, depending on what you use exactly. And Portfolio really lives, or sorry, Advanced Roadmap really lives in Jira, right? It's just another view of your Jira data. What it will do and what is very helpful is it actually is the only way, if you're familiar with Jira, to actually build a hierarchy over the epic, right? And this is one of the key features that you get there that will help support this portfolio level, is this ability to create parent link relationships between new issue types that you're going to be able to create, like initiatives, and you can even go higher than that if you want to, above the traditional epic, story, bug, and task, as well as subtask layout that you usually get with Jira that is fairly fixed and difficult to change, right? So by doing this, Advanced Roadmap allows us to pretty much roll up that information that we get from the team level, the stories, etc., into the epic level, the feature in some other frameworks, all the way up to that initiative portfolio level. And this is what you see here, right? These orange items here are issues in Jira that track our initiatives and that we can plan accordingly, and that we can roll up progress from everything that happens below this. And this is what you see here. That progress can be an issue count, as we have here, or actually progress in terms of story points as well, depending on how we want to see that roll up. There is even possibility to manage days instead of story points if that's needed in your context. So through Advanced Roadmap, I'm going to be able to actually drill through those different layers of our portfolio, all the way from the initiative, and below that, see all the features that belong to that initiative. And I can drill one more layer, see all the stories, and here you can see I even have the subtask. So it's really a representation of all that work that is being done under one initiative and how it's being planned in our Jira instance. And that's really one of the key elements that Advanced Roadmap brings to the table when we look at these different layers, is this ability to roll up the information that anywhere else in Jira is fairly complex to do if you don't, aside from the project level in Jira, it's a fairly complex thing to do. So now you have a way to roll up that information from date, statuses, and have a visibility over how the work is being done. You can adjust and do planning here, depending on what you want to do and how you want to manage those items, bottom up or the opposite, top down, depending on how you're going to plan for this. The portfolio understand teams, so it brings the layer of the team very well. There's a field dedicated to that in Jira that is going to show which team takes on specific items of work. Those teams are based on boards in Jira. And this is where Dean was saying it's really important when you start working with agility at scale to have a structured Jira and kind of a structure that's going to make sense for the tools that you're going to use and help with reporting. So typically a team equals a board, and then you can have a program within a project, for example, in Jira verbiage to structure all of this together. So that team dimension is really well understood in Advanced Roadmap. The program level or that team of team is going to be, depending on how you structure this. So very typically what we have for that layer is use the project, as I mentioned, multiple teams that work together will share a Jira project. And this will allow you to have that visibility and, for example, group to see the work for that specific program. For example, if you want to group by project, you'll be able to see those different teams of teams and how the work relates to them. So you do have this ability to play with data and kind of start seeing those different layers that Dean was talking about. One thing that is very important, and you may have seen it when we talk about when we show the roadmap here, is dependencies and how Advanced Roadmap manages that. So each item here, and it's pretty clever because you might not have all those work items, those dependencies visible here, but you do have this red indication here that we have a dependency prior to this. So this task is blocked by another task, and we have kind of the lead time calculated for this. Similarly, if it's this task would block something else, we would have that little red indicator here. So anywhere you are filtering views, looking only at the work that you're doing, you still have this ability to visualize those dependencies. There is a new view that came up fairly recently in Advanced Roadmap to visualize those dependencies differently and have that level of visibility here, where you can have a big tree of all the dependencies that you have in your projects and actually decide how you want to roll it up. So if you want to see at the top level, those initiatives, are they self-contained or do we actually have dependencies on other initiatives? You can have this visibility there and you can drill at every layer that makes sense in your context. You're also able to group it by team because once again, the tool has this understanding of the team layer to see how those dependencies may relate between different teams. So that's something that is very important here. Now for the time component, this is where Advanced Roadmap is really a stepping stone in a way towards more advanced agility at scale, because it only really has that sprint layer at the team level. The quarterly increment or the PI planning, that shared organizational cadence that you're going to have, is not something that is understood out of the box in the tool. Very often we have workarounds for this, and we can utilize the release concept and cross-release project in Advanced Roadmap to be able to track this work that is being done for those different quarters in a specific way. And you can get some level of visibility with version reports and things like that. But it's more of a workaround than a fully implemented solution that supports this process of planning by quarter, for example. So that's something that is absolutely possible. And for a lot of teams and a lot of our customers that get started, this is already much more than they already have in terms of visibility. So that's a great way to get started. As the organization matures and the practices improve, there's some additional indicators that you may need at that layer. And on this, I'm going to pass it back to Dean to talk a little bit about that.
If I could jump in quickly, Roma, there was one question for you.
Yeah,
so Jeff asked on the chat, he loved the visualization. Is there a view to help identify common causes of delays, dependencies, so you can determine which are most impactful on the flow of your work and begin to address the most frequent dependencies?
So this is where the level of dependency in Advanced Roadmap is going to have its limitations, right? Dependencies here are really links in Jira, so they're the block links. So you can do anything in Jira that you can do with links, right? So you can create your own views and specific views like this. There is no more advanced dependency views than what we've seen here in terms of this specific view here, and there is some additional filtering that can be done, to actually visualize just items with dependencies, for example. So you do have some flexibility. You can play around a little bit, but that's going to be the layer that you get. The rest is something that you can build up around those links that exist between those different work items, but you won't have much more than that. Any other
Awesome.
questions?
No, that's it for now. Thanks for that, Roma.
Dean, over to you.
All right, fantastic. Let's see here. We'll go back to the sharing. And I wanted to pop back to the visual of the portfolio level with advanced roadmaps. So yes, notice as Roma mentioned, out of the box, we're still missing the time and outcomes dimensions. But also as mentioned, it's a huge leap forward for a lot of companies to even dabble at the portfolio level like this. Oftentimes we're brought in really just to help at the team level. And then before you know it, we're helping them organize into programs to deliver in a more coordinated fashion on a quarterly basis. And then we could level them up to here. And it's a huge leap forward. However, if you really want the fullness of this level, let's go ahead and take a look at how Jira Align handles that. Now with Jira Align, once we introduce that, we now have the time and outcomes dimensions at the program and portfolio level, which is fantastic. And now we've got the actual program increments, or if you call them quarterly increments in your context. Again, whatever your terminology is. In fact, that is one of the great things about Jira Align is the configurable platform terminology. And then just like a program increment would be a group of sprints, usually 5 or 6 sprints per quarter, you could now have multiple program increments at that portfolio level epic, because portfolio epics or initiatives by definition will span program increments, just like a feature or a Jira epic would span sprints. And it's great to have the associated business results tied to those work items, because it's very important to understand the why, right? We know the what, we know the backlog, but what is the why? Well, it's those outcomes that we're trying to achieve. Those could be things like annual OKRs or portfolio OKRs at that higher level. Or if you're following SAFe at the program level, those could be your program objectives that you come out of PI planning with. Or they could be program OKRs if you're an organization that has OKRs at each level, which is becoming more and more common. Now, you'll notice off to the left, Jira Align takes up that big chunk there because it's giving us room to grow now, right? We have other blocks we could fill in this connected enterprise, but right now we're still going to focus at the portfolio level. And notice too that advanced roadmaps is no longer necessary once we introduce Jira Align, no longer necessary at the portfolio level, but still helpful at the program and team level. So we keep it in the tool set. So at this point, we would have Jira Align, advanced roadmaps, and the foundation, Jira software, all together. So let's now pop over once again, and Roma's going to show you the greater value that Jira Align delivers at this level. So I'll go ahead and stop and pass it on over to Roma.
There we go. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. So this is where probably a tool that most of you might not be as familiar with as Advanced Roadmap, for example, just because it's geared for larger scale deployments and larger, like a higher level of maturity as well in terms of agility at scale. So it's a completely separate solution from Jira, unlike Advanced Roadmap that was built on it. So this is a cloud-based solution that sits on its own and is a separate solution. And really the goal here is to tie everything up from the top level of the organization all the way down to the lowest work item. So we really understand how these items are connected across those different levels of visibilities that Dean was mentioning. So you can see here, it's just a quick representation of the different layers of data that exist in Align, all the way from the top level of the organization, the executives with the mission, vision, and values, all the way down to our strategic level with themes, which is something that sits on top of the initiatives for a lot of customers, depending on their framework. The portfolio layer, where we're going to have our initiative intake, backlog, and there's a lot of features in Jira Align that help around how to prioritize this portfolio backlog and make sure you have good visibility and tracking of that backlog, which does not naturally exist in Jira. And finally, your program level. And as Dean mentioned, you can see we can really rename those different layers in Jira Align in many different ways, depending on the language that you speak internally for your organization or the framework that you choose. So my program layer here is called business units, but that's really the program layer, the team of teams that work on features or Jira epics. And this is what you see here. And you can tie down, of course, the story layer as well. So this is just a quick visibility to give you the sense of how items are connected together in Jira Align and how you can understand how this will play a role as we move forward. Now, in Jira Align, what you can do is tie these items together and, of course, have similar features in terms of roadmap that is going to be built for you by the tool based on how you've prioritized your backlog and assigning items to specific program increments. So unlike Jira and Advanced Roadmap, Jira Align has a built-in comprehension for program increments or quarterly increments that share cadence that we have across those different teams. And this is becoming very helpful here because now we're going to have the abilities throughout the tool to really categorize and understand those items based on those quarterly increments. And that becomes key for planning at that level, right? To have that visibility over our initiatives, for example, here over a period of time, because we use those quarterly increments for planning. So you can see here, I'm in the calendar view, but I can switch this to our quarterly increments. So we're going to see those different PIs here, QI5, QI6, QI7 that we've given them, and have the ability to track the progress of those different initiatives throughout these different quarterly increments. You can drill through and look at here the different features that make up each of those initiatives as well. So you have this ability to visualize that. Of course, you can tie this to ownership and visibility of who is the owner of that specific epic or initiative in this context. Throughout Jira Align, you can really drill through the data and those different layers that we talked about to really understand the information that makes sense to you, right? So we have the portfolio level, we have the program level where we can choose one or multiple programs, and the team layer. So you can filter all the views that you have based on those different dimensions to really have views that make sense for you as an individual contributor in that organization. Now, one thing that is very interesting, and Dean mentioned it, is for any of those items that we have here, we're going to have the ability to track a lot of different things, but most importantly, the why information. And so any item in Jira is connected into other items all the way to the top of the hierarchy to understand how this actually helps the organization move forward and how that specific work item helps us move the ball forward for that specific initiative or top layer item. And this is what you see here, right? You have that visibility over the why information. This is transparency as well. That means that at every layer of the organization, you have this ability to visualize how this fits into the greater strategy of the organization, but it also helps make sure that we are aligned on outcomes. And this is something that Dean was mentioning as well. By providing that visibility, we can make sure that we're working on the items that are a priority for the organization. And this is something that we'll find throughout Jira Align for different layers, and that can even be brought down to the epic in Jira when you integrate the two tools together. And that's a very important point.
Is that based on your points, by any chance? Is that based on story points?
The progress is, yeah.
So
absolutely.
In other words, if they do the story point for the user stories correctly, that'll help maximize and minimize your minimum viable product versus your delivery.
Yeah, and you have a lot of different ways to visualize information, estimate in Jira Align, depending on the framework that you choose, what you want to, how you want to prioritize and estimate those different layers. At the story level, it is the story point, of course, but at the initiative layer, for example, you have different ways of prioritizing, and that can be as simple of as a quick, overview over a strategic score and kind of high-level estimate of effort, or that can be much more complex if you want to assess the value of different initiatives based on your own scorecards to have that level of priority and understand how you're going to manage that backlog. Jira Align allows you to create those different scorecards and actually compare this against other initiatives within the same realm that compete for the same people, money, and time as this specific initiative. So that's a very key element that Align brings to the table in a much more advanced way than anything you could do in Jira, pretty much. Now, what is really interesting as well is that Jira Align has a real comprehension, as I mentioned, for the program level as well as the portfolio layer. Sorry about that. Here you can see we can select different quarterly increments. So that's that program layer where we see what we're going to deliver for a specific program for the next period of time. And so you have a lot of different levels of reporting, like this one that we see here, that is pretty much a configurable dashboard for the program layer with things that you would not be able to see very easily in Jira without adding multiple plugins, such as the overview of all those different sprints that we have part of that specific program increment, the current load of that program. So that's directly based on the number of story points and the overall velocity of the program. So you can have this visibility here, which is not something that is super easy to get out of Jira if you want to have this type of information directly in Jira software. On the left side here, you can see we can track progress against different work items, the teams themselves, their load versus capacity of those different teams that make up the program. Here we can track the current sprint process and how we've been able to deliver in green against what's left to do in gray. You can, of course, drill through and see information related to specific teams, and this is what we see here. So if I drill on any of them, I'll have only the information that relates to that team, the risk related to that team, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to go back to the top layer view. And finally, you can also get indicators that, once again, are fairly hard when you work across teams in Jira to get, such as quarterly increment burn down that will have the whole scope of those different teams here. So this is really helpful because of that comprehension of that object level in Jira. You have a lot of visibility there. I see that we have a lot of things popping up in the chat. Is there any questions that I can address right away?
Yeah, one of them, Roma. How about tying the work to outcomes? Maybe show how the roadmap could be grouped by OKR, for example. So we could be looking at program epics now or initiatives grouped by their corresponding, high level, maybe it's an annual OKR, for example. So that will put the emphasis on the outcomes, while we also have, we could hover over that progress bar and see, point roll-ups and things like that. But we also want to see, okay, what do these work items contribute to? What are the key, strategic outcomes we're looking to achieve? So here's a view that shows you that.
Yeah, so because Jira Align has the link between all those different work items and just higher level objectives, you can absolutely have those views, including the roadmap, tailored to show how these items relate to more strategic objectives, for example. And this is what we see here with this group by feature that we have. Fantastic. So there's a lot to show in Jira Align. It's a very complete solution that has a lot of different layers. I just wanted to point out a couple of extra things, right? We talked about the program room that we had there. I wanted to show you as well the management of dependencies that we touched on for Jira Advanced Roadmap and Jira software. Dependencies in Jira Align are completely different in the sense that they are actual objects that have a workflow and that are tracked, and they are agreements between teams on specific things that need to be delivered by a specific date, right? Specific items of work. So you can manage those different agreements, and you can see here I have a list of delivered items. These are all the requests that I made to other teams to manage those specific dependencies. And similarly, here I have the requests that were pending my action or that were requested from me and my team. So you can see some of them are committed, some of them are blocked, and you can track in each individual dependency this way. Now, what this means is that for the question we had earlier about dependency visualization is that you can go a lot further into that than you would be able to in Jira. And one of the key views here for that purpose is the dependency map that you see here. At this level, you can filter what level of visibility you want to have for those dependencies. And this is the dependency will view. And basically what this gives you is a clear visualization of how those different teams are related to each other by dependencies. So if you click on one team, you'll see all the dependencies that currently exist for that specific team, the one that they have requested from other team and the one that were requested from them. And you have this visibility over how those have been worked on. And when you start your program increment planning, essentially, all those dependencies will be red because they will be waiting for a commitment from a response and an agreement between those different teams. So you send an initial request with a proposed time for delivery of that specific work item. And that team can accept that or actually propose a different time, for example, as they're doing that planning. And as you move forward with the planning process, they'll turn from red to blue, which is committed, and finally to green when it's delivered. So now at the end of our PI, you can see we still have a couple of red ones, which are probably blocked items that we should pay attention to and have visibility over. Now, this means that you can also provide different levels of visibility, like the grid view, over those dependencies. And this is probably a better answer to the question that we had earlier in Advanced Roadmap to identify over-reliance on specific teams, for example. So to the left, we have the teams that request. To the right, we have the teams that actually deliver those dependencies. And you can see that we can quickly identify specific teams that we are relying upon heavily, like this Baltimore one here, or the Tiger one, that seem to have a lot of requests coming in from other teams. On the opposite side, a team like Washington seems to be missing some critical skills or something because they tend to rely a lot on different teams. So this is probably the type of visualization that you were talking about earlier, and that you want to have to understand how those teams relate to each other and what kind of dependencies happen there. I don't want to go over time, so Dean, is there anything else I should mention?
Yeah, I think that was great. Thank you so much, Roma. I think let's jump back in, and we want to get to the quiz and the prizes, that's for sure. So what I'm going to do is pick up the pace. Luckily, we put our highest priority backlog items first, so we've already covered the most important stuff for you guys, and now we're going to trim the tail so we can meet our deadline. So here we go. We're doing it. We're doing Agile. So let's let me go ahead and share my screen once again, and we're going to pick up the pace here. All right. So we just saw Roma's great Jira Align demo. Now, guys, Jira Align has over 165 canned reports alone, not to mention a dashboard at each level of scale called a room, not to mention a flexible API and a way to layer on your business intelligence solutions to mine the data within Jira Align. It really is the leading enterprise agile planning platform. So there's so much we could have gone into. I want to get us to the quiz and the prizes, because what the heck, it's St. Patrick's Day and we need to celebrate something. But I just want to round out that connected enterprise real quick. So we looked earlier at this slide. So this is really the sweet spot. We've got the program level fully up and running. We now have a solid foundation at the portfolio level. Well, what would come next? Well, we could add in that optional level if we need it, the solution level that we talked about. We could also now level up yet again and roll up our portfolio epics into strategic themes. That's the highest level work item in Jira Align, where now the time dimension is a strategic snapshot, which is a group of program increments. And then this has real high level goals attached to it. Okay, these are enterprise OKRs, things of that nature. Last but not least, we build that enterprise all the way up to the top, where now, as Roma showed you briefly in the strategy room, you've got your corporate mission, vision, and values. everything rolls up to those and connects to those. So now you're a fully connected enterprise from the top down and the bottom up. You're connecting strategy with execution. You have visibility across all of your teams and teams of teams. You've got great visualizations. Look at that dependency visualization alone. That has helped countless organizations realign, because when you first start an agile transformation, your tendency is, hey, let's group our program teams into functional areas, like our old waterfall way. Well, you're going to see how that's not good, because your dependency wheel is going to look like a dense spider web, and it's going to be all red and crazy. And that has actually helped educate organizations that, hey, we actually need to align around value, not around functional. We need to be cross-functional agile release trains and cross-functional tribes capable of delivering features within business quarters with minimal external dependencies. And then you'll see that dependency wheel goes from that dense spider web down to something quite manageable. So all of these visualizations are helpful for your stages of the transformation journey, okay? And there are plenty of tips that we could get into. I want to just basically call out one of them, which would be working with an Atlassian partner, because Jira Align, it's not like Jira where you could just download it on your own, on a credit card and start playing with it. You need to work through a partner. There are over 769 different feature toggles within Jira Align. Your partner is going to know how to configure those for your context. Okay, it's critical. They're with you every step of the journey. They're matching where you are in your agile practices, and they're having the tool set support your agile mindset, whether you're at the beginning stage or you're at what I call the Jedi stage. Okay, the Shu-Ha-Ri stages of agility, right? Whether you're an apprentice or you're a master, the tool set needs to support you. So, that's just one critical component. Another top tip, by the way, for scaling agile with Jira Align, or any tool for that matter, if you look at the annual State of Agile report that comes out around May each year, for 3 years in a row, the top tip was having your own internal agile coaches. This is critical, because that way you have your own sustainable agile capability within your organization, and you don't have to rely on external consultants as much. Yes, at the start, you're going to have probably 80% external consultants, 20% internal people, but that's going to flip usually within a year, as we've seen. So those are a couple tips for you. Let's see, we want to get into, because we've got 11 minutes remaining, we do want to get into the quiz. Before we do, are there any burning questions on what you've seen thus far? If not, I think we could probably take it to the fun quiz. We might not have covered everything in there, so that's going to make it even more fun. Oh, I see Pierre showing the book. Yeah, well, the diagrams in this presentation are based on the book, and the book is going to be your prize. Okay, so the top 3 quiz respondents, those who got the best scores, the top 3 are going to get a copy of this book, okay? And it's written by myself and Aslam Kader, my colleague. And then there's also going to be a couple other prizes as well. So at that point, why don't I go ahead and stop sharing? Oh, hey, Danny's on now with the Slido. There we go.
I did, so everybody should see the Slido now. I will start opening it up so you can register. So if everyone can quickly just register, then we will kick this off.
And I will not be participating in the quiz, even though you see my name in there.
That's right. Dean is our quiz master. He's our host.
Hey, Danny, can I join?
Sure, why not? I know you won't win. That's why you can join. All right, I think we got about half the folks registered. You're all set, Dean? I'll kick it off.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, here we go. Here's the first question.
All right, question 1. What is an expected benefit of scaling Agile with Jira Align? Take a look at those answers.
That's an easy question.
Well, we're on a timer here. You'll see you got 3 seconds remaining. All right, here we go. Next one coming up. Ooh, all of the above. All right. Yeah, you guys are smart. Okay, what is the top tip for success with scaling Agile? Three seconds remaining. Internal Agile coaches. Ooh, tied with business process mapping. Okay, the correct answer was internal Agile coaches. Okay, here we go. Jira Align supports scaling frameworks, including which of the following? Select all that apply. We did not specifically mention this, but I think you guys are smart enough to figure this one out. Yeah, the answer was all of them. Jira Align supports all of these frameworks and more. Okay, what is another name for a program? Select all that apply. Remember we talked about the program level and how that's a generic term. Three seconds. Okay, for those who chose Team of Teams, Agile Release Train, and Tribe, you were correct. True or false? Objectives help shift the program's focus from output to outcomes, delivering work to delivering value. Someone was talking about this in the Q&A chat earlier. Yep, everybody got that one. Of course, that's what we're all after. Good job. All right, next one. Which of the following statements about Jira Align's roadmaps is true? Take a look at those. Roma showed us the roadmaps. Three seconds. Yes, all of the above. Oh, you guys got it. Nobody got that one wrong. All right, what's next? Okay, in what year was Jira Align launched? We didn't specifically mention this, but this could be a good differentiator for your knowledge. Let's show us what you got. Three seconds remaining. Okay, most of you thought 2019, which was when Atlassian acquired AgileCraft, but the correct answer nobody got. In 2013, AgileCraft, which is now Jira Align, was launched by Steve Elliott and company. So yeah, so that we put that one in there just to make sure to keep you guys on your toes. So let's see what are the oh my goodness, look at this. Paul, number 1, Martin, number 2, Jennifer, number 3, and then we have Jeff and Vilius.
I forfeit my my prize. Please give it to a because I'm with Valiantys. Please, I forfeit.
Okay, so we'll take the number 6 person. So the top 3, which would be Martin, Jennifer, and Jeff, are going to get copies of the book. Congratulations. And then Vilius, and then another person, whoever was number 6, are going to have some fabulous swag from Atlassian, I believe.
So number 6, it's not on the screen, but I can see it, is Ward. So Ward, if you want to reach out as well. And the way you can claim your prizes is just email either Kamal, Susan, myself, or Maiken, and we will connect you with that.
All right. Do we have any time for Q&A? Let's see. We had a lot to go. Yeah, we've got 5 minutes remaining, it looks like.
So let me pull down the screen so we've got a full view of you. And folks, feel free to either unmute yourselves, ask your question in the chat, whatever's easiest for you.
And I'm going to send all the difficult questions over to Roma.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hi.
What's up?
Oh, let me turn on my video. Sorry. Yeah. So I was in and out of the session, but my team has been really interested in Jira Align, and the things that they're asking about, they want to know, like one of their main asks, can it do, let's say, like a velocity chart in terms of like, let's say, if 10 story points over the last, let's say, 4 sprints has been taking X amount of time, then can it like forecast into the future what that 10 story points would look like, and sort of like change the roadmap accordingly?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, one of the great things about it is, okay, so in Jira, you're getting your team level velocity. So you should know what your teams could do per sprint just from Jira software. But where Jira Align really excels is, hey, what is now our program level velocity? So when we plan as a team of teams each quarter, what could we take on? And usually now, rather than say like 40 points per sprint for a single team, say you've got 10 teams, now you're talking about 400 points per quarter. And there are plenty of visualizations for that. And you could see how, sprint by sprint or quarter by quarter, how either the teams or the team of teams are delivering upon their projected velocity, which is based on their past performance. So it does take into consideration, right, your past performance, how you did in previous program increments. Now you could override that as the release train engineer or agile level program manager, whatever your role is in your organization. For example, if you're in the program room, you could load, right, your sprint, or rather your programs, according to your program level velocity, but you could override that. Like if you know, hey, you know what? Actually, we have a lot of guys on vacation in this quarter, so we're going to actually reduce it, or maybe now we've supplemented the team, so we're going to increase it. So even though it does these sort of auto calculations for you to give you a starting point, you've got the knowledge, whether you're at the team level as a scrum master or as an RTE at the program level, you have that knowledge where you could override that and say, I'm going to base it on what I know, because we actually have made some moves now to handle this situation differently than would have been projected based on past performance. And Roma, let me know if you have anything else to add there that might help.
No, I think that was a great answer. What I would say is that that notion of velocity and planning when you estimate based on the story points is something you'll find a lot of places in Jira Align. As you mentioned, kind of that program increment load as well when you're planning. So there's a lot of different places where this is going to come in handy to do that work of planification and adding items. Yeah, that's all I can add.
Does that help, Ward?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. Of course, for more info, you could always reach out directly to us, and we could, come up with more. And you could also check out the book too. Any other questions? Pierre's showing. Oh, there you go.
Well, I think that kind of wraps it up, doesn't it? It was a really good hour.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you so much. Sorry, my internet went unstable. I dropped out a few times, so I'm so glad we are recording it. We can probably stop the recording now, Danny. And what we'll do is we'll somehow get that onto the wrap up of the event, because I think it was a really interesting presentation. And Dean, what an excellent job both you and Romain did. Danny, any words to add?
No. We will thank you all for joining us and spending your lunch with us. We will share the recording once we have it available with the wrap-up materials. Congrats to all the winners. Dean, Roma, Pierre, everybody, thanks for the great presentation today.
You're very welcome.
And
Great to be here.
winners get in touch with us. And that was super amazing. Thank you so much, everybody.
Happy St. Patty's.